Well, hey everybody. What is going on? What an exciting weekend we have, huh? This was a really packed weekend. We had news all over the place, but let's get this started. I am Green Bean. Welcome to episode 7, I think it is already, of GreenBean's Jets pod. I am so happy that you guys are here. I truly am. I'm being as serious as I can be. I'm blown away by the support. I sincerely appreciate the support. It's just so cool to be able to do this and connect with you guys, especially for a guy like myself, because I'm no longer home. I'm no longer in our area where the largest concentration of Jets fans are, and that's obviously New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Well, not all of New Jersey, that's Philly, Jersey. There's a little bit less of us down there, but, most of New Jersey and the area up there, that's where I come from, and I'm not there any longer. So it really, it's been an incredible benefit to me to be able to do the Jetnation on the road with Green Bean videos. Jetnation is just so incredibly cool and supportive and everything. And then going from there to the podcast and my own YouTube channel, and then with Ryan and Matt, being able to have access to you guys has quite literally changed my experience, and I couldn't be more grateful. So thank you. If you get a moment, please hit the subscribe button. It means the world. It enables me to do certain things on the YouTube channel. One, for example, was I was able to offer you guys a poll on YouTube concerning the Monday Night Mock and what you guys would like to see. I had a few hundred, or a couple hundred, I should say. I don't want to get overzealous. I had a couple hundred responses, and now I know exactly what you guys would like to see. I gave a few options. You want to see more Deshaun Watson trade stuff? Do you want to see a mock free agency and all that? So you guys were able to answer that, but I was not able to do that until I hit 1,000 subscribers. So YouTube sent me a little message, said, "Hey, congratulations, you big old-fashioned turd, you. You can now have a community post." So I did it, and it's been great. So please like the videos. That helps. Subscribe to the videos. YouTube is Green Bean Jetsfan and Jetnation on YouTube. My Instagram is Green Bean the Jets Fan. Twitter is Bean the Jets Fan. And you can follow my national coaster tour. As some of you know, I'm living in an RV, traveling with my family in an effort to take them on every single roller coaster in the country. And you can find those videos on Full-Time Coaster Tour on YouTube. So, what was the biggest thing that happened this weekend? Well, there was a few things. So let's just get right into it. With the Senior Bowl. We had the Senior Bowl this week, and if you're like me, you pay attention to the practices, who's doing what, who's rising, who's falling, and a lot of the times it gives us the ability to see some guys that are floating under the radar. They go into these Senior Bowl practices, and they really make themselves known, and the NFL coaches that are there get to see them probably for, maybe not the first time, but they get to see them more than they were. And because of that access, they tend to give these guys a little bit more of a shot. So you see that sometimes in the Senior Bowl. And this year was not a disappointment. I mean, there are a few guys that were not really on our radar that showed up. And there were some guys that were on our radar that looked really good, and some others that didn't show up. So it really does, it starts the whole mix going into draft season. This is really the beginning of draft season from my perspective. And just so you guys know, the Senior Bowl, as important as it is, one of the gentlemen on our staff, Mr. Phil Savage, the former GM of the Cleveland Browns, is a consultant to Joe Douglas. He's a New York Jets personnel department staffer. He ran the Senior Bowl for a number of years. So his access to this world is really second to none. I mean, he ran it. He was the director of the Senior Bowl, and he's now on the New York Jets staff underneath Joe Douglas. And if you guys don't know this little historical fact, Phil Savage was actually the guy that gave Joe Douglas his first start for an NFL organization. And by start, I mean he gave him his start. He gave him his first job. Let's say it that way. With the Baltimore Ravens, if you guys haven't taken a second and watched the first season of Hard Knocks when it was the Baltimore Ravens, Phil Savage was the director of college scouting, if I remember correctly, and he gave Joe Douglas his first job in an NFL team, and Joe Douglas's job was the Turk, which is the guy who hands all these aspiring players their pink slips. You know, he goes and gives them a little ticket and says, hey, can I have your grab your playbook, and coach wants to see you, and everybody knows what that means. So it's probably the worst job in the organization, and that's where our general manager started, and Phil Savage gave him that start. So there's a lot of connectivity here. If you can start to see why it is that some of us feel so good about Joe Douglas and his staff, it's for reasons just like this. Like when you watch the Senior Bowl, you see how important it is to a lot of these young men coming into the NFL, or at least with NFL dreams. Like I said, some of them don't really, maybe they're not getting the access, the press and for their schools and such. So the Senior Bowl gives them that ability to do that. And Phil Savage, who's on our staff, ran that thing for many years, and so he knows the deal, man. He knows what he's looking at, and you can bet your bottom dollar that we had a little more access than some other teams to the Senior Bowl this week. So let's take a look. There were we've been doing these Monday night mocks, and which is just a great time, by the way. I'm loving that you guys come. I know people are starting to get more mad at me. I'm getting some hate mail, if you can believe that, saying, hey, people picked this. Why did you pick this? And why don't we do this? And I want to just remind everybody a couple things about the Monday Night Mock. Number one, I'm doing my best, okay? I'm not a pro. I never did this before. I don't know what the hell's going on. So there's that, right? Number two is that, a lot of the time when I'm trying to take a vote, so I say, okay, it's down to, for this pick, it's down to wide receiver and edge. And so everybody votes. We want wide receivers or edge, and then we'll say, okay, well, here's the players in wide. So we've chosen wide receiver. Who do you guys want? And I get 100 different players, and some people are sneaky. They'll vote like 12 times, and so I'm just trying to count them up. And then I noticed that this guy voted a whole bunch of times. So he's really only. It looks like it's even, but it's really only one guy voting for the other guy. So I got to keep track of that stuff, and it's hard, man. It's hard for me. As a matter of fact, I would love it if somebody would come on board. Man, I can bring you in, and if your job is just to count up the picks for me, we could do that. If anybody's interested, DM me on Instagram, or maybe even in the comments under this YouTube video, and let me know, man. I'm in. I could use a teammate here. It'd be fun. So, but I'm trying. I'm not trying. Somebody said, why do you even hold a mock if you are just going to outvote everybody? And listen, man, I'm not outvoting anybody. You know what I mean? I don't know how that's what you're seeing, but I apologize. It's certainly not intentional. I want this to be consensus, but it's not easy for an old fellow like myself. But we do these mocks, and certain players are on our radar. A lot of guys have allegiances to one school or another, and there are guys in there. Like a really good one was the running back Patterson out of Buffalo. There's a few guys in there that know this player much more than a lot of us, including myself. So because of their input, we were able to take a look at this player, get to know him a little bit better, and now we felt comfortable taking him in the later rounds. And it's really kind of cool. Like this whole process, what it should do, and my hope for it, is that we all become better informed, more educated on these players that we want the Jets to draft. This way you could know if your general manager sucks or not. Like Mike McCagnon. If you knew the players before he was picking them, you would have said, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like, well, how could he possibly override taking any one of these guys for that guy? And he did that all the time. So it's really good to be an informed consumer of this nonsense. So this week in the Senior Bowl, or this year, I should say, a couple guys stood out. And I'll make this really quick just to talk about a few guys. A wide receiver from Louisville really stood out, Dez Fitzpatrick. And I'll be real honest, we have not been talking about that guy very much. And he had an excellent game, as did Cornell Powell out of Clemson. You hear about a lot of the Clemson players, Etienne, Amari Rodgers, who also had a good game. But we don't hear so much about Cornell Powell, and he really did have a good game. So he's a guy to watch out for. Frank Darby out of Arizona State he had a really good acrobatic catch, and then he had 2 drops. That's Herm Edwards' boy over there in Arizona State. So that's got to be the biggest bummer in the world when you're in the spotlight. everybody's looking, you have a great catch and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to do it. And then you have 2 drops and everybody goes, and you got to now work from that hole. So that sucks for Frank Darby. Shi Smith, the 5'10", 186-pound slot receiver, had a good game. Amari Rodgers arguably had the best game for a receiver. He had 4 receptions for 23 yards. He had a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, and the touchdown was impressive. If you saw it. If not, go watch some highlights. Amari Rodgers really did some good things and showed why he's been looked at as like a 3rd-round pick. He might shoot up a little bit, especially after the pro days and however they compensate for not having the combine this year. I think Amari Rodgers is a guy to really look at. The edge rushers, one of the guys that we're all talking about is Patrick Jones II out of Pitt. A lot of us, myself included, he is probably my favorite pass rusher in the draft. There are some others, of course, but right now he's the guy I like the most. He had a great game, man. He had a series of tackles. He had a 1.5 sacks, and he showed up. He showed up just like you would hope that he would show up, a guy like that. He looked good. Another one that's not on so many people's radars is Janarius Robinson out of Florida State. Another big guy, 6'6", 266, plays on the edge, and he had a decent game. Jonathan Cooper out of OSU, who we do know about a little bit more, he had 1.5 sacks as well. So, hey, good game. Good game. Now, one of my favorite positions in the whole world is tight end, and one of my favorite tight ends in the draft, Mr. Kenny Yeboah out of Ole Miss, had a very good acrobatic catch, showed everybody that he's not your normal tight end. He has the hands, man. He has skills. He's not looked at as a 1st or 2nd round pick type of a tight end, but he's going to go to somebody in the realm of some of these 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round tight ends that make it. Kittle is a good example. So I think he's in that mold, and he showed up at the Senior Bowl. The quarterbacks, 2 guys that I had been talking about for a while, Kellen Mond and Jamie Newman, had okay games. Mond had a little bit more impressive game, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Jamie Newman, a little bit more mobile. I like Jamie Newman. He's super duper crazy raw, but I like him a lot. He's one of the guys I like most as a sleeper in this draft, and he had a touchdown and a pick. They get their chance, man. They get their chance to show up. Mac Jones didn't get to play, and he was rocking it all week, all the past 2 weeks at the practices at the Senior Bowl. He was looking like he was going to come in and have a showcase game, but unfortunately that did not happen. But anyway, I hope you had a good time enjoying it. I hope you enjoyed watching it, I should say. And if you're not watching this type of stuff, try to make this a part of your schedule if you're into this type of thing. If not, that's okay too. But if you want to learn about player evaluation, a really good place to just watch and take a look at what's going on is the Senior Bowl, because you have the NFL staffs coming down, and these are guys, they're obviously their last year in college, so some of them are not your big names, but they're seniors. So a lot of the juniors that are coming out that might have taken some of the attention away from these guys, they get that 2-week period to showcase themselves. And the Senior Bowl is an important game for that stuff. But it's good. It's good. So hopefully you enjoyed that. So the main subject of this podcast is going to be this. Trades. Trades are on the mind of every single Jets fan. Right around now, I think every NFL fan is really looking at trades. And I was already putting together this podcast, and then over this weekend, something big happened. I had all my stuff kind of almost done. I had some tidbits to work on. And then what happens? The Detroit Lions trade Matthew Stafford to the Los Angeles Rams. Out of nowhere, man. I didn't see it coming. I knew that, they were working on some trade deals with some teams, but I didn't see it coming this quickly. Now let's just tell you what happened there. The Lions traded Matthew Stafford to the Los Angeles Rams for a 2022 second. And the reason for that is that the Rams don't have a first. This is their, third, not second, I'm sorry. But they don't have a first, so they didn't want to let go of their first pick, which was the second. I believe it's number 57. The Rams don't have a first-round pick this year because of the Jalen Ramsey trade. They didn't have a first-round pick last year. They didn't have a first-round pick this year. So they gave a 2021 third, Jared Goff, the Rams starting quarterback, a first in 2022, and a first in 2023. Now, my first thought, I made a video about it if you want to watch and hear literally my first thoughts. I made it like right as I heard the news. I just got my camera out and filmed it. My first thought was that, holy cow, did Detroit get the deal of the century? That was my first thought. What the hell are the Rams thinking? But as I thought about it, read some stuff, talked to some people, talked to some of you guys as well, I realized that the main motivation for this trade was probably to dump Jared Goff's contract. So Detroit taking on that contract got paid for it. It's just that simple. And that's what the second, in my opinion, the second of the first round picks really was for. It was like, hey, I'll make that trade, but this contract, this is an albatross to some degree. It was a bad contract, really. I remember when Jared Goff signed that contract, a lot of us thought that it was like a little bit of a head scratcher as far as the values within. So they took on Jared Goff's contract, and they gave up a second first round pick for doing that. Okay. So what does it all mean? I had a lot. I mean, I had tweets and texts and everything going on last night. The Texans are going to want 5 firsts. They're going to want 5 firsts. If Stafford can get 2 firsts, a third, and a starting quarterback, they're going to want 5 firsts, 10 firsts. It was crazy last night. And I can understand that. If I'm being real honest, that was a part of my first initial thought process too. Like, holy cow, man, if Stafford's getting that. But upon further review, here's what I think. Number one, let's just say for a second that it's a terrible deal. Let's just say it's terrible from the Rams' perspective, which is our perspective because we would be the buyers in this instance. So let's say it's a terrible deal and they way overpaid. That doesn't mean Joe Douglas has to overpay. It doesn't mean anything. Like a lot of people say that, like, look at this deal and look at that deal. That if that got that, then we're going to have to pay that. It doesn't mean that. It means that if you have a weak GM, sure. But it doesn't necessarily have any bearing. They could try to use it. Well, look, Matthew Stafford's this and his stats are, I don't care. How's that grab you? I don't really care. Matthew Stafford, I would have paid that for Matt Stafford. So let's just leave that on the side and let's talk about Deshaun Watson. We can handle it that way. That all said, it wasn't that bad of a deal because, like I said, they assumed a contract that was hefty for a guy who is iffy, quite frankly. Jared Goff's an okay quarterback. He is. He's streaky, and he does have good games. He's a good quarterback. He's not the guy you want to bring on to take you over the mountain, in my opinion. And he's inconsistent, so there's that. But he's a young guy, and he's got skills. He's been to the Super Bowl, man, and he's been to the playoffs, so he can play. Okay, so they get a decent quarterback, but it's more about that contract. So they took on the contract and they gave them 2 firsts, but they didn't give them a first this year. If you look at the value of those first round picks, both of them combined equal about 1,300 points. And the way that you get to that equation is when you look at this year's point values, so they all have an established associated value, okay? The first pick is worth 3,000 and on and on and on. So when you look at next year's picks, essentially the easiest way to do the equation is you just bounce those picks down 1 round and then associate the value that way. So if it's a 2022 first, you would say, so this is 2021. If it's a 2022 first, if you bounce it down 1 year, you take the first pick of the second round and you look at that value, okay? So when you add those values up, you have about 1,300 points. That's half of the value of the second overall pick, which is 2,600 points. So even though they do get 2 first-round picks, you have to associate values to things. And I was always one that was a little bit confused with that. I'm like, it's still a first-round pick, man. Just because it's not this year doesn't mean in 2 years it's not going to have the value. But it is. But that's the thing. And the old rule, the old saying, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, right? And that's really the premise here. A pick in the hand is worth 2 tomorrow in the bush, okay? The one you catch, that has value. The other one's just hypothetical. We know what the hell that is. The NFL could close up shop next year for all we know, and you never get to use it. So that's the thing. So a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. The pick this year is worth more than the pick next year and subsequently the year afterward. So when you look at the values, 1,300 points, and then whatever Jared Goff's value is, And the third round pick this year is somewhere in the 200 range or something like that. I don't have it in front of me. I could get it for you. Let me see. Let me just do this. What the fuck are we talking about here? And just like that, I have the pick values. That's the magic. The magic of editing. So let's look at the first pick in the third round, right? Boom, 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 is worth 265 points this year, currently held by the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, Jared Goff, that third round pick, so you're looking at 1,300 for the two. Let's do the whole equation, okay? So you have 2 first-round picks, which will associate 580 points to each one. So that's 1,160 points, right? Isn't that what that is? Like I told you, man, this is green bean math. I'm doing it quick. 1,160 plus you add 265. So that's 1,300, 1,425. How am I doing? 1,425 points. Add Jared Goff. Let's give him a first-round grade next year. Another 500. So you're still all of that collected. If you give Jared Goff next year's first-round grade, dude, it's still not the 2,600 that our second pick overall holds. It's just not the same value. So it's not that bad. Now, it could be looked at from a different perspective with the Rams just not having a first-round pick for 4 straight years. That's something. But the argument can be made that they don't need him. Jalen Ramsey was one of the better pick for player trades. I'll tell you. I mean, that guy was shutting people down this year, and he's probably just now hitting his prime. That guy is a top-tier player, and he's going to be a perennial Pro Bowler and all that. So they did well there. So if they don't have the confidence in their later first-round picks equaling the player that they're going to trade for, then why not do it, right? Like if they're looking at the draft and they're thinking, shit, we have this contract, this Jared Goff contract, and the quarterbacks, the Kellen Monds, the Jamie Newmans, even the Kyle Trasks of the world, they're developmental. I don't have the time to develop them. So using a first-round pick on them isn't going to fly. So he just went and got Matt Stafford. The guy's a 12 or 11-year vet. He'll be starting his 12th season in 2021. And the guy's sharp, man. He still can play. You know, let's call it what it is. Matt Stafford, while he's older, is still one of the better quarterbacks in the league. So, hey, why not do it? They made the value assessment, and it's smart when you do it like that. So now I'm looking at it like it's just a good trade. And that's the best kind of trade to have when it works out for both sides. You look at the Dan Campbell Lions now. Like Dan Campbell comes over to the Lions. They have a whole new regime in there as far as coaches and players and everything. And they want to start fresh. Matthew Stafford's been there for the last 4 head coaches or so. So it's time. And he now has 2 first-round picks for the next 3 years. Oh, no, 1 this year, but he's got 2 thirds, 2 firsts, 2 firsts. Not a bad way to start. You know what I mean? It's not a bad way to start the Matt Campbell era. Or Dan Campbell, right? Dan Campbell. What the hell am I talking about here? Campbell. Let's just stick with Campbell. I fried out. I don't know what. Matt Campbell. Who's Matt Campbell? Is it Dan Campbell? Either way, Campbell. All right. So that trade kind of jumped in and jostled things around. It made everybody nervous. It made other people excited. I had people go, good. Stafford's the last thing I wanted this team to do. And if that's your point of view, good for you. Happy birthday, you know. Like I said before, Stafford was kind of like my plan C, plan D. Not the worst, and that's what I was talking about. I don't feel all that nervous about this offseason. I'm really excited, man, especially because I feel like we hired one of the better options at head coach, okay? So there's that. We have Joe Douglas doing a good job. Robert Saleh, universally respected by the NFL. And then now we have plan A is like, hey, man, we have the 2nd overall pick. Take the top-tier quarterback, build around him with the rest of the draft capital we have. Plan B, Deshaun Watson. Maybe we can give some of this capital away and get Deshaun Watson. Plan C, you keep Sam. You know, plan D, you bring in Stafford. Like we had all these layers and tiers of plans. So I feel good about it. But so one plan is taken off the table. Matt Stafford has gone to the Los Angeles Rams, and let's see how this one works out. I'll be keeping an eye on it, as I'm sure you will be. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what Matt Stafford can do with an organization that's not the Detroit Lions. So I'm interested. So that brings us to the deeper subject of the day. Now, I did receive a couple of messages through different mediums that have told me I'm tired of talking about Deshaun Watson. I'm tired of it already. I hear you. And one guy said, I can't believe I'm tired of this already. It's going to be a long offseason, man. And I hear that too. I do. But this is what happens. It's the time, a season of smoke and mirrors. It's the season of misdirection. It's the season of trades and rumors and moves and all this kinds of stuff. And if you look at it through the right lens, it's fun. This is the fun stuff. Just don't attach yourself. If you can, try to remove your emotions from any of this stuff, because that shit'll kill you. It'll kill you, man. Especially with the Jets. So let's just take a minute and look at this potential for a trade. So we have the number 2 overall pick. If the Jets are going to trade that pick is more valuable than anything else anybody's offering. Okay? Period. If that's on the table, that pick is worth more. Now look at the next pick down. Miami's pick, which I've already shared with you guys, is, let's just look at this. Let me pull it back up here. Miami's pick is worth 2,200 draft value points. That's 400 points. 400 points is quite literally pick 50, which is also Miami's pick, interestingly enough. So in order for the Dolphins to match what the Jets have sitting there with their 1 pick, they would have to offer the 3rd overall pick and pick 50. Okay, that's just for starters. And then we can battle it out from there. Then you have Tua Tagovailoa versus Sam Darnold. But the way I see it is that, and this is, look, man, we've been talking. The way I'm starting to really settle on this one is that if Sam Darnold is in the mix, the number 2 pick is not in the mix, and vice versa. Like, why would they want the number 2 overall pick and the first, second round value of Sam Darnold in there if they're going to take a quarterback with the 2nd overall pick? If they want both, it would spook me that they just want to trade down and do what we were going to do, which is, I'd hate that. That would bother the shit out of me. Even though we get Deshaun Watson, it would bother me that they took the 2nd round pick and then traded, and we got to watch them do everything that we were going to do. They had 9 firsts and all that, and Sam Darnold. So, but I really think when the chips are down, Sam Darnold and the number 2 overall pick aren't going to be a part of the same equation. So here's what I want to just offer. You guys know which side I stand on by now, I'm sure, but I'll tell you, I'm on the side that we should definitely pay for this guy. You should definitely be offering a robust package for him. But it should not, absolutely should not be one that removes your potential to build around Deshaun Watson for the next number of years, okay? So like this 4 firsts, including the 2nd overall pick, like hell no. If the 2nd overall pick is in there, that takes a first away, man. Like you can give him the 2nd and a first or something like that, or Sam and 2 firsts, something like that. But I think the idea that the Texans are way down in this hole, they have no cap space, they have no picks, and they're going to be able to bark orders up, that just doesn't sit well with me. And if somebody like the Raiders is going to come in and say, we want to give you 5 firsts and Derek Carr. Hey, man, you don't got to outbid that. Let the Raiders give 5 firsts and Derek Carr. That's the way I see it. Like I said, our plan A is actually or even if you say it's plan B, our plan B, if the Deshaun Watson thing doesn't work out, is, oh no, we're left with the 2nd overall pick, the 23rd overall pick, and the 34th overall pick, 2 firsts next year. Like, it's not that bad, dude. Don't forget, Deshaun Watson is not ours. He's never been ours. There's potential there, but there's no reason to get upset. If somebody's going to outbid us and go nuts, then let them outbid us. It doesn't matter. That said, we should try. Okay, so that's my take on it. But I know a lot of people I respect dearly and that I talk to. Some of you fucks I don't respect, but I talk to you anyway. But most of you I do. I disagree with that. I think you get Deshaun Watson at all costs. If it takes 4 firsts and a 2nd, you do it. Okay. Like I said, I disagree with that, but I understand and I respect it to a degree. So let's just take a second, if we could, and let's have some fun. Let's look at the largest trades in the past, recent NFL history. I put together just some of the more notable trades. There's obviously going to be other ones people are going to throw at me and all that, and that's fine. But there are some really good examples of large trades, massive trades for players that the team thought was the player that was going to put them over the top. Sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. So I wanted to give this to you guys, and let's have a little bit of fun and we can have a discussion, okay? So the first one I'm going to give to you guys is in the year 2000, 20 years ago, the Saints recruited a legendary coach named Mike Ditka, who had one of the most dominant teams in NFL history, the 85 Bears, I'm sorry. That's where Rex Ryan's dad was a defensive coordinator, all that. So he decided that it was a good idea to trade. Well, he thought that Ricky Williams, the best running back in the class, was so good, he wanted to mimic and recoup his Walter Payton. That's what he wanted for the Saints. He said, at all costs, I need my Saints version of Walter Payton. And he thought it was a good idea to trade his entire draft to move up from 12 overall to 5 overall. So 7 picks up. This is what we talk about with draft value, man. Now, the chart wasn't even developed yet, I don't think. But they all had some governing tools they used and all that. But so he thought it was a good idea to trade his entire draft, every pick from every round, and his first and third the following year. So it's actually 1999 this trade went down. So Mike Ditka got Ricky Williams, great, highly touted running back coming out of school. And he gave his whole he wanted one pick. He's the only pick I need. I don't need anything else. Just give me this kid and we're going to rule the world. So his entire draft and his first and third the next year. Because you know what happened there is the Washington Redskins at the time, they didn't want to trade the 5th overall pick. They didn't want to do it. They probably wanted Ricky Williams or they wanted somebody for their own team. And Ditka just kept dumping shit. No, I'll give you this, I'll give you that. And he got to a deal. You're seriously going to give me the 12 overall, every pick in this draft, plus your first and third next year for one guy? They took it. So you want to know how this worked out? 2 years later, the Saints traded Ricky Williams. I think they fired Mike Ditka too. Like, this guy's out of his fucking mind. So that's what they did. This guy's out of his mind. They bought in on name only. They said, hey, man, he's a genius. We're just going to go. Nobody thinks this is smart. Nobody else in the organization bought into that one. I'm sure of it. But they let him do it because he's Mike Ditka. And then we learned right there that Mike Ditka's plumb crazy. Mike Ditka may have lost it. So 2 years later, they were able to trade him to the Miami Dolphins for 2 firsts. So at least you got that back. At least you got your 2 firsts, which is a good trade for them. It only is not a good trade is because the first trade to acquire Ricky Williams was so bad. So that pick did not work out for the team getting the player. The team getting the picks, they drafted a lot of guys. I don't have the list of it, but some of the guys were actually, I believe I think Woodson was in that trade. So anyway, they did okay with it. Trade. It also includes the Washington Redskins. Now this one happened in 2012. The Washington Redskins, I believe with Mike Shanahan, interestingly enough, as the coach, they wanted Robert Griffin III, RG3. They wanted him. Now, don't forget, the Colts already had the first overall pick. They were absolutely taking Andrew Luck. No questions. They let Peyton Manning walk, the whole thing. They were taking Andrew Luck. There was like a 1% chance, very similar to the Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields debate going. It's like there's 99 and 44th, 100%. They're taking Trevor Lawrence, but there is the chance that they're taking RG3. I mean, that they're going to take Justin Fields. So the Washington Redskins knew this. And they wanted RG3, who was another highly regarded prospect. Very similar to Justin Fields, and very mobile quarterbacks, lighting it up, beautiful deep ball, all those types of attributes, leadership qualities. So they called the Rams, who held the second overall pick, and they offered their 2012 first rounder, which was 6 overall. So they just went back 4 picks. This is all to move up 4 slots in the 2012 draft. They gave their 6th overall, which is their first rounder, their second round pick that year, number 39, their 2013 first, and their 2014 first. So they gave 3 first round picks and a second round pick in the first year. So you know the value of that. All to move up 4 spots. So the Rams just moved back 4 spots and got 3 firsts and a second. So that year they had 2 firsts, 2 seconds. Next year, 2 firsts, 2 firsts. That's what the Rams did just to move back 4 spots. As we know, RG3 came into the league and lit it up. I remember thinking, holy cow, this guy might be unstoppable. He was unbelievable that first year. And sadly, an injury derailed him. But that's the thing. An injury could derail Deshaun Watson. An injury could derail anybody, right? So that's when you start looking into how much capital you're going to give to one guy. That's one of the risks. That's one of the major risks. Unfortunately for Washington, is that it happened. And RG3 was never the same. He bounced around a little bit. He came back in a little bit. He'd play a decent game, then get hurt again. And it was terrible, man. But basically, they lost that trade because RG3 was not the franchise quarterback that they traded for. That was what they wanted. But silver lining for the Washington football team at the time, the Rams suck, and they didn't pick anybody of note with those selections. They did not do well. I think that was the time when they were choosing offensive linemen like every year for a while. I don't know. I think that might be those years. But they didn't do well with those picks, so that was good. At least the Washington fans had that, you know. So anyway, that's a big one, the RG3 trade. So we have another one in 1998. This is one that's less talked about, but it's a big one. The Chargers moved up to get, it's very similar to the RG3 Andrew Luck trade. And interestingly, it deals with the Colts again. But this is when the Colts had Peyton Manning waiting there because he didn't come out the year before because Parcells, our brilliant head coach, decided not to tell Archie Manning he couldn't guarantee that he would take his kid first. It's just the stupidest thing. You know, history could have been totally different for us, Jets fans. But it's not. And it sucks because Parcells is one of the greatest coaches we've ever had, if not the greatest. So how can you complain? You can't. I hate that prison cell. I hate it. I want to yell. I want to bitch about it. But I can't because Parcells was good. Traded back. Got James Farrier and Dedrick Ward out of that one. That's what I think. So the Chargers moved up in a similar fashion to what we just said about the Washington football team. They moved up and they got the second overall pick, which they took the second quarterback. Peyton Manning was the quarterback that year. Ryan Leaf was the second quarterback that year. Had everything you want in a quarterback. Came out of Washington State, if I remember correctly. I don't have that. Washington, maybe. Yeah, Washington State. But I remember articles back then that the Chargers, they were like, well, what if you guys are trading up, you know the Colts are going to take Manning. So obviously you're doing this for Leaf. But what if they take Leaf and they leave you with Peyton Manning? You're okay with that? I remember the Chargers GM at the time saying, we are comfortable with either quarterback. We feel that they are on equal footing. They are in the same talent tier, and we're delighted to take either quarterback that falls to us. So what they gave up was this, a 1998 first rounder, which is, guess what? 3. So they moved up 1 spot to take Ryan Leaf. With this trade is with the Cardinals. They gave their second rounder, number 33 overall, their 1999 first rounder, wide receiver Eric Metcalf, and linebacker Patrick Sapp. So they gave up 2 players. Metcalf was good. They gave up a first, which was number 3. So they really gave a second, a first, and 2 players to move up 1 spot. So here's what happened. Now they traded up. So they gave up their first, second, next year's first, and 2 players to move up 1 spot to grab Ryan Leaf. Again, the guy had everything. He was like 6'5", 250, whatever. He was like the epitome of, like he was like a textbook quarterback. Super strong arm. And then Ryan Leaf, quite literally, degraded in front of our eyes. Remember that? If you guys don't remember this, Google it. If you're too young or whatever. Ryan Leaf attacking press. Like he would jump into the stands at fans. He was out of his mind. He lost it. Turned out that later on he got into a whole bunch of drug issues and he lost everything just a few years in. So their gamble to move up did not work out. We all know what happened with Peyton Manning, but the Ryan Leaf thing did not work out. So they gave up all that capital. It's a lot to move up 1 pick. We like to complain about the Bears and what they did to move up to get Trubisky. And let me tell you, they got a deal when it's compared to this one. Trading up, 2 firsts, a second, and 2 players to move up 1 spot is hefty. So, but it didn't work out for them. So we have the Oakland Raiders. This one's a little bit more recent history. What about the Oakland Raiders when they traded Kalil Mack? How did that one work out? We could look at this one because it's still happening, right? It's still unfolding. But so John Gruden became the coach of the Oakland Raiders. Now the Las Vegas Raiders, which is that's weird, man. I don't like it. Let me just put that out there too. I don't like it. I didn't like when they moved to LA, but that was fine. Then they moved back to Oakland. They corrected a wrong, and now they're in Vegas? What is that? Vegas is a transient town. It's like Miami. There's nobody that really lives there. Anyway, everybody's from somewhere else. They land in Vegas, already fans of teams. Nobody's a Vegas person, right? I guess there's some people. I don't know. What do I know? But anyway, it's just weird to me. But so John Gruden became the coach of the Oakland Raiders, and Kalil Mack was doing that holdout thing. And they made some offers, and he didn't want it. He wanted more. And basically what happened was they traded him to the Chicago Bears. So here's what they got. The Raiders traded Kalil Mack, a 2nd-round pick, and a conditional 5th to the Bears. The Bears sent the Raiders their 1st-round pick that year, their 6th-round pick that year, their 1st and 3rd-round picks the following year, which was 2020. Okay? So, interestingly enough, a little tidbit is that the Raiders ended up trading that 6th-round pick they got from the Bears to guess who? To us. The Jets got that one. Isn't that nice? So we got that in the Kelechi Osemele trade. When we sent them a 5th-round pick, they sent us Kelechi Osemele and the 6th they got from the Bears. Little nugget for you to a little chew on that one. So they gave up 2 firsts, a 3rd, a 6th, and then had to pay Kalil Mack. They made Kalil Mack the richest defensive player in NFL history at the time. Now, he's playing well. Especially that first year when he went over to Chicago. He lit it up, man. He was a monster. He was a beast. The Raiders, on the other hand, used those picks to draft running back Josh Jacobs, Rookie of the Year that year. And then they traded the 6th-round pick. So the Raiders got running back Josh Jacobs, and I'm fairly confident that was the pick they used to grab Henry Ruggs III, the speedy little wide receiver who may or may not just have ended our boy Lamar Jackson, cornerback. They might have ended his career because that was the big cover 0 play. So they got Henry Ruggs III and Josh Jacobs for Kalil Mack. Obviously saved millions of dollars in the trade, in the deal. And the Chicago Bears, for all the greatness that Kalil Mack brings, they didn't make the playoffs. And, so what good is that trade, right? So in my opinion, and while there are rumblings this year that the Chicago Bears are looking to potentially deal Kalil Mack, but nobody's going to do it because they don't want to pay that contract. And that's the kind of thing that you get stuck with. So in my opinion, and this is debatable, I want you to know, I think the Raiders won that deal. The receivers of the capital and the Chicago Bears being the player side of the pick, I feel like the Raiders got the better end of that deal. I don't know who they drafted with their third round pick. It might be maybe Tanner Muse, who's good, by the way. So the Raiders got, forgive me on this one, they either got receiver Brian Edwards or linebacker Tanner Muse in that trade. So, again, I think that they picked well. I don't like the Cleveland Farrell pick, but that has nothing to do with this here. So they did well. They got Ruggs, Tanner Muse, let's say, and Josh Jacobs. Not too shabby. And don't forget, they're all on rookie contracts for the next 5 years or 4 years in Muse's case. So they did well. Now let's get to the biggest one ever. Ooh, the Herschel Walker trade. We won't spend much time on this, but I want to just bring it up. So Herschel Walker trade is really interesting. He was the best running back in the league that year, which is 1989, I believe it was. So the Dallas Cowboys got 2,000 all-purpose yards out of Herschel Walker. The Vikings thought that Herschel Walker was all they needed to elevate them over the mountain to get to the Super Bowl. So they thought now Jimmy Johnson, this is where the whole draft chart comes in and all that. This is where Jimmy Johnson was the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys at the time, was really working his magic. In a nutshell, he got the Vikings to trade him a bunch of players, and we'll go through those players. So they traded a linebacker named Jesse Solomon, a linebacker David Howard, cornerback Isaac Holt, defensive end Alex Stewart, all in that trade. Defensive end Alex Stewart, all in that trade. So they gave their first and third that year. Okay, I'm sorry, their first and second round picks in that year, sixth round pick the next year, and a second round pick in 1992. Okay, so those were the picks that they gave them, plus all those players. But here's the genius. What Jimmy Johnson did is he wove into that. He said, okay, these are all starters. In the event they don't end up starting for us, like if I have to cut them or something, let's attach a pick value to them. So the Vikings said, yeah, there's no way he's going to cut all these guys. So they let them put first round picks on those players if they weren't on the roster by a certain day. So essentially what happened was they made the trade and Jimmy Johnson cut these guys. So Jimmy Johnson cut defensive end Alex Stewart within days, got another first, and the rest is history. So really what he did was he fooled the Vikings into believing that these players were valued by him. He couldn't have gave a damn about them. He wanted the picks. So those picks were the foundation of the Dallas Cowboys dynasty in the 90s, going to and winning some Super Bowls. They were dominant. One of the picks was Emmitt Smith, if I remember correctly. So, guys, this was a trade where the running back, undeniably one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league at the time. The Vikings got him, and he played well, but not well enough not to be gone off the Vikings in 3 years. He went to the Philadelphia Eagles and did some stuff. But long story short is they did not get to or win a Super Bowl with Herschel Walker, and the Dallas Cowboys did. So the results there are undeniable. So these, like I said, there's a lot more examples that we could get into, but those are some of the more high-profile ones. There's the Jerry Rice trade, the Joe Montana trade, all kinds of good trades that we could evaluate. But looking at these, in my opinion, it looks like the team receiving the picks in these almost lopsided deals made out far better than the team receiving the player. And this is where you look in, and look, let's just take RG3 as an example. It was nothing that Washington did wrong except overpay for one player. They overpaid. Nobody's going to deny that. But if RG3 ended up being the franchise quarterback that they hoped, it would be no issue. It really wouldn't. But the problem is it's one player, and when he got hurt, the entire deal went down the toilet. Because we're depending, that's what's called putting all your eggs in one basket. The basket was named RG3, and when the basket turned over, all the eggs were done. You like that? You see what I did there? It's very similar to my bird in the hand and two in the bush. I got all kinds of things going on today. What's another one? You know any good sayings? Give me a saying. Two wrongs don't make a right. which applies to the Matt Stafford thing. Just because you view the Matt Stafford as a lopsided trade, if Matthew Stafford did command more than he's worth, two wrongs don't make a right. That doesn't mean we have to do it, man. It does not mean that we now have to double our price for Deshaun Watson. And if somebody's going to do that, fine. But my concern here is this, and this is really my point, and it's not the only point, but it's the point I'd like to make, is that trading all of your assets, putting your team in somewhat of a hole for that one great player, it's putting all your eggs in one basket, and more times than not, it doesn't work out. It did not work out in the Ryan Leaf trade. It did not work out in the Ricky Williams trade. It did not work out in the RG3 trade. Kalil Mack is arguable. Kalil Mack is fantastic. And it did not work out in the Herschel Walker trade. I'll add just the one, like I said before, the Jalen Ramsey trade, it might be working out in that one too. Okay? So it's not that it can't. It's that more times than not, when you overpay for that one gem, he's going to do it, he's our savior, you fall off, you fall flat on your face. And that's not what I think it would be fun to watch. I don't want to see that. And thankfully, I feel confident that Joe Douglas is too smart for that. Not that he won't pay. You're going to have to pay for Deshaun Watson. He's not coming for free. But it can't be one of these deals where you give the second overall pick and 3 firsts and a second and third. I saw it was like first and second this year, including the number 2 pick, first and second next year, first and second the following year, and Quinnen Williams. It's like, dude, you're high. Like, you don't have, if that's what they want, then you say, see you later, man. I'll just keep all my picks. If I could keep Sam Darnold and trade back and get 5 more firsts as you go down the line and take Mac Jones. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you don't have to do all that stuff. So it's a good point to discuss. In truth, I hope we can move past this Deshaun Watson thing in a little bit. Whether it's yay or nay, it would be nice to know. I wouldn't hold my breath on it. It's going to probably be a minute, but it is what it is. We'll start to talk about some of the other things, but it's very important because this, for us, this is the biggest thing that we have going on, and it's good to analyze this. Again, just like I said about knowing the players, so when our general manager makes the picks, you can have an educated opinion on the picks. Same thing applies here. It's like when you look at values and trades and all that, it's good to have some perspective, some foundation for your feelings and your thoughts. Hopefully what I've done today is given you some of that with some of the more high-profile blockbuster trades in NFL history. It's fun to look them up, man. Go look up some more. Like I said, the Jerry Rice, the Joe Montana, there's all kinds of trades. Have some fun, look around. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear your opinion on either these trades or how you think it applies, or the Senior Bowl and Amari Rodgers, whatever it is. I look forward to hearing from you. That all said, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Green Bean Jets Fan on YouTube, Jetnation on YouTube, Green Bean the Jets Fan on Twitter, Bean the Jets Fan on Twitter, Green Bean the Jets Fan on Instagram. I'm all over the joint. And don't forget my full-time coaster tour on YouTube. Full-time coaster tour, one ride at a time on Instagram. I have too many damn social medias. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to start some new ones. We're going to go get Twitch. Follow me on Twitch. That said, have a great day. Go Jets. Yabba doo ba da ba dee ba doo ba da ba. Yabba da ba doo ba da ba dee ba doo ba.